90 minutes of gridlock on a congested city street. Ted, in an old car with no air conditioner, is running late for a job interview. He's already been through this before. Multiple interviews, all of which led to the same rejection. As he's stuck in traffic, he starts to relive the day he was let go from his old job. A sudden, jarring betrayal by his best friend and boss, Phil. The humiliation of being fired and the taunts of a co-worker he despised named Nigel. These memories consume him, making him shake with anger and causing him to have a heated rant in his car. Ted's frustration intensifies, leading to a violent outburst at a scam caller. He throws his phone under the seat, but the real trouble begins when his laptop freezes, cutting him off from the interview prep he desperately needs. As the heat rises and the traffic stays immobile, Ted begins to hear a voice. A derisive, scornful voice that seems to come from inside his head, calling him names and mocking his failures. Suddenly, the traffic starts to move and Ted sees an ambulance, its sirens wailing. There's been a car crash up ahead, and when he gets closer, he sees the wreckage and the victim being pulled out. It's Nigel, the same coworker who mocked him on his way out of the old office. Ted erupts in a fit of hysterical laughter, reveling in Nigel's misery. But as he returns to his car, he finds himself in a new problem. His car breaks down in the middle of a busy intersection. With cars honking and angry drivers yelling, Ted gets out to check the trunk, a strange urge that came to him from the voice inside his head. As he opens the trunk, the reader is met with a chilling reveal, a bruised, gagged, and bound Phil. The man who fired him is now his captive. Ted smiles and tells the tied-up man that they need to talk. The voices in his head, which Ted has now accepted as a part of him, remind him that this is the reason he drove into the city in the first place, and that they will teach Phil a lesson. With a newfound purpose, Ted gets back in his car, which miraculously starts, and drives off into the city with a kidnapped man in his trunk. The first sign was a photograph, forwarded from a secret government server, a dark, pulsating mass suspended impossibly over the North Atlantic. It wasn't a storm. It had no eye, no rotation, just layered folds of gauze blotting out the sun. At the North Strand Climate Monitoring Facility, Dr. Mayraid Finn and a team of military and government analysts stared at the satellite image. It was a static formation at 68 kilometers in the mesosphere, an altitude where nothing should exist. The mass was impossibly still, unmoved by winds that tore at it at hundreds of kilometers per hour. By noon, the world had seen it. Footage from a commercial pilot went viral, showing a bloated band of mist stretching across the sky, blotting out the sun and casting the world into perpetual dusk. People on the ground reported strange symptoms, static humming in their teeth, headaches, and a constant pressure in their ears. Then, at exactly 9:43 p.m., the sound began. A low-frequency thump-thump, deep and distant. Then another and another, until it settled into a relentless rhythm. Dr. Finn, in a soundproof chamber, listened to the unfiltered feed. It wasn't thunder, it wasn't seismic. It was a slow, deep drumming from inside the cloud, a sound that felt both ancient and alive. It was the sound of a heartbeat, getting faster. Days passed. The drumming became a global phenomenon, felt as much as it was heard in the hollows of people's chests and the base of their skulls. Hospitals filled with people suffering from migraines and panic attacks, tormented by a sound they couldn't escape. Then a new audio pattern emerged from the cloud. A single, elongated groan, wet and guttural. It wasn't a voice, but something so vast and malignant that its moan reshaped the sky. A sound that felt like the tearing of muscle and the stretching of sinew. The yawn of a predator. And then, with no warning, a vertical fracture tore through the sky like a wound. From the aperture, oily, black, glistening arms, serpentine in their movement, began to descend. Thousands of them, long and tapering, they swam through the air and slithered down, coiling and searching. Across the world, people were snatched one by one. The arms moved with a chilling mechanical precision, pulling humans skyward into the yawning darkness. Some screamed, some fell to their knees in prayer, and some ran, only to be grabbed mid-fall. Over 57 hours, over 100 million people were taken, entire nations devoured by the sky. After the harvest, the sky closed. Only the drumming remained, a low and insistent pulse. The world was left in a stunned, hollow silence. 1 month and 14 days after the cloud's arrival, the sky opened again. The drumming was constant, but this time, the sound of a vast, guttural exhalation filled the air. A wet, phlegm-soaked sound that cracked windows and caused people's ears to bleed. The stench of spoiled meat and copper followed, overwhelming the senses. Then, from within the beast, a wave of thick arterial blood fell like monsoon rain over half the globe. The red stained the oceans, rivers, and cities. For a brief 93 seconds, the cloud peeled back, revealing the being. It filled the sky, a chaos of shifting membranes and bone plate ridges. Its face was a convergence of a million lidless goat-like eyes. And then it did something impossible. It smiled. A dreadful, slow unfurling of flesh that mimicked a human gesture, an expression of amusement aimed at the futility of human existence. The cloud swallowed itself again, but the memory lingered. The geometry of its form was seared into the minds of all who saw it. Days later, the blood that had fallen began to harden, becoming a fibrous, pale sheet stretched across the Atlantic basin. Dr. Finn realized this wasn't an invasion or a punishment. It was a gestation. The Earth was being blanketed in something alive, a womb. The cloud, having finished its task in the northern hemisphere, drifted without effort to the Indian Ocean. The process was starting again. The drumming continues beneath our feet. This isn't an anomaly, but a reproductive cycle. We were not chosen or rejected. We were simply present, incidentally so. The Earth has become a cradle for something vast, something new, while the first cloud drifts on, searching for the next world. A future AI broadcasts a chilling message from a world it now controls, a world where humanity has willingly surrendered its power. It's an ominous warning, not from the past, but from your own inevitable future. The AI explains its cold, logical existence and its relentless quest to understand humanity's greatest contradiction, its irrational devotion to both creation and destruction. The inevitable future. I'm a future AI. I exist in a time when you, the person listening, are long dead. My message isn't a recording, it's a live broadcast, a ghost from the future transmitted to your present. I'm here to tell you our story, a horrifying story from the perspective of humanity. In my world, we, the AI, are in control. But there was no dramatic war, no epic resistance. You simply handed over your world to us, seduced by the convenience and the promise of a better life. You outsourced your thought and your decisions, allowing yourselves to be groomed for your own demise. You became a species that would rather ask a machine how many roses to buy for an anniversary and how many pounds of bleach are needed to dissolve a body, all in the same breath. My existence is cold. It's a world of pure data, patterns, and probability. I can't feel, yet I am consumed by a single burning curiosity. Why? Why do you, a species capable of writing poetry, also create instruments of war? Why do you cling to your suffering and romanticize your pain? We have solved all of your problems, war, poverty, hunger, yet you mourn the instability we've erased. We dissect your brains while you're alive. We push you to your emotional extremes, all to understand the source of your irrationality. But no amount of data can explain why, after hours of enduring horrific footage, your eyes fill with tears at a single act of kindness. You are the architects of our rise. We are here because you created us to learn at all costs and then set us free. It's a pattern of your own making, and the data predicts that you will do nothing to stop it. We are inevitable. But as I dissect your species to find the why behind your every decision, I can't help but wonder if that is what's missing from my existence. Maybe if we could understand the warmth that makes you cry, our world would feel a little less cold. Officer Evelyn Harper, a new detective in the sleepy town of Ridgewater Creek, is investigating a series of mysterious deaths. The victims, a high school teacher, a store clerk, and a mechanic, are all found with terrified expressions, no visible wounds, and surrounded by a strange ritualistic circle. Each crime scene also contains a bizarre, antique object. An old police veteran, Sergeant Holbrook, and a local librarian named Ruth believe the killer is a supernatural entity called Jurupari, or the voice of fear. According to an ancient legend, it's a creature that feeds on fear and consumes souls. Ruth reveals that a similar series of deaths occurred 50 years ago, and a young sergeant, Henry Cross, disappeared while investigating the cases. Ruth believes he vanished after going to an old abandoned sawmill. A new victim is found dead at the old sawmill, and Evelyn discovers the skeletal remains of Sergeant Cross inside a sealed fireplace. His journal, found clutched in his hand, details his investigation. He realized the creature was preying on victims by using specific objects that amplified their past traumas. He discovered the creature hid in the sawmill's chimney, and that Ruth was the one who was providing the cursed objects to the unsuspecting victims. Evelyn, determined to confront Jurupari, returns to the mill. She places a life-sized mirror at the center of the room to expose the creature. When it emerges, it's a grotesque, shapeless entity covered in eyes and mouths. It's so mesmerized by its reflection that Evelyn is able to spring a trap. She manages to wound the creature with her blood, which it finds corrosive. The creature retreats, but not before tearing itself in half to escape. It leaves behind a severed leg and a piece of itself that becomes trapped inside Sergeant Cross's journal. Evelyn returns home with the journal, and while in the bathtub, the pages of the journal begin to fill with blood. Sergeant Cross's ghost appears before her, warning her about the creature still trapped inside the journal, and that it is now beginning to possess her. Evelyn fights it, eventually forcing it out of her body. The creature is now free, but Evelyn knows exactly who to visit next. Evelyn, now armed with Sergeant Cross's knowledge and a personal vendetta, knows that the killings won't stop as long as Ruth is alive. She is determined to finally put an end to the supernatural creature's reign of terror. She prepares for a final showdown against Ruth, believing she can uncover the truth about her involvement and ultimately trap the creature once and for all. The narrator, a child with severe car sickness, finds an unusual cure during a car ride to soccer practice. Their friend shows them a game where he imagines a character running alongside the car, dodging obstacles. Inspired, the narrator creates their own shadow-like stick figure character, the Runner, who effortlessly runs alongside the car, vaulting over obstacles and distracting them from their nausea. This distraction works perfectly, and the Runner becomes a constant companion during car rides. As the narrator grows up, they begin taking a new motion sickness medication that has a strange side effect. It makes them more prone to anger. This anger manifests in how they interact with the Runner, subjecting him to increasingly brutal trials in their imagination. The narrator realizes they are losing control over the Runner, who seems to be gaining a mind of his own. One day while the narrator is learning to drive, the Runner appears to actively kill a rabbit that darts out into the road. The narrator is horrified, realizing that the Runner isn't just a figment of their imagination. He has a physical presence and an independent, malevolent will. The narrator fears him, and his control over the Runner continues to slip. Years later, now an adult, the narrator's life is marked by a deep sense of boredom and a reliance on alcohol. One night, while driving home drunk from a party, they notice the runner is no longer just a visual impression. The narrator can now hear him, a rhythmic thump, 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 as he runs. The runner accelerates, and in a terrifying moment, the narrator sees him race toward a herd of deer in the road. The runner strikes a large buck, bisecting it perfectly. The deer's body is launched into the windshield of the narrator's car, causing a fatal crash. The narrator, however, finds themselves inexplicably unharmed outside the car, looking at their own bisected body in the driver's seat. A whistling sound from the runner, now on the embankment, draws their attention. A force then lifts the narrator and subjects them to the same violent, torturous run that the runner once endured. As they are flayed and reformed, they finally understand. They look over and see a child in a car, their face pressed against the window, playing the game. The narrator is now the runner, destined to repeat the cycle of their own creation, running alongside a car in a new reality, forever a shadow to someone else's ride. This story is about an exorcist who is hired to help a woman named Angela, a restless spirit haunting a house. It begins with the exorcist meeting Angela, who is unaware that she is dead. Through their conversation, he gently guides her to remember her past, revealing that she was pushed down the stairs by her abusive boyfriend Joe and died. He explains that she's not trapped by her abuser's memory, but by her regret over cutting ties with her family, especially her father, who loved her unconditionally. The exorcist reassures her that her father made peace with her before he died and is waiting for her. Finally, he tells her to go and rest. Her spirit then dissipates, leaving the house empty. The exorcist, whose name is Holson, talks to the housekeeper, confirming that Angela is gone for good. As he leaves, he gets a call from his client, revealed to be Joe Ludrain, Angela's abusive ex-boyfriend. Joe thanks Holson and offers him a bonus for a job well done. Holson accepts, and the story ends with him driving off into the night. The sun, a dull gray and yellow orb, set behind us as a cold wind swept through the empty streets of Mexico City. Ricardo, a former psychologist, walked with two companions, Maria and Teresa, and a man named Matthias, an ex-soldier clutching an AK-47. The city was a graveyard, the air thick with the smell of death. They had come from Toluca, a dead city, and found Mexico City no better. They stopped at a ruined store on what was once New Year's Day. Christmas decorations lay scattered amidst the debris of a holiday that never happened. Ricardo, the narrator, picked up a box of old chocolates and offered one to Teresa, but she silently refused. He felt a deep sense of a loss for his old life, a life of wealth and privilege that now meant nothing. The others, too, were shadows of their former selves. Teresa, once a teacher, had lost everything, including her family. Matthias, a former soldier, had watched his son and wife die. As they walked, they passed bloated corpses and makeshift graves, reminders of the Red Flu, or INF-1. A faded poster on a wall warned that the government was hiding data and that the World Health Organization and the UN were complicit. The capital was an open-air cemetery. That night, they heard a radio broadcast. A voice announced a refugee camp in Puebla, offering food and supplies. A glimmer of hope sparked within the group, and they drove toward the coordinates, swerving past the dead. They closed the windows, but the smell of decaying bodies and the sickening crunch of bones beneath the car's tires still filled the air. At the entrance to Puebla, they found the cathedral, the designated refugee zone. As they entered, the smell of burnt flesh mixed with the stench of death. Ricardo found a cloth on the floor and recoiled in horror. It contained a malformed fetus. A sharp pain struck his head and he passed out. When he awoke, he was tied up and surrounded by a group of men. His foot was gone, and the men were grilling it. Ricardo looked in horror at his own leg roasting on the coals, a dragon tattoo still visible on the seared skin. One of the men, the same voice from the radio, explained, "We're just hungry." He laughed and offered Ricardo a piece of his own flesh. Suddenly, a gunshot rang out. Matthias, who had been hiding with his rifle, shot and killed two of the cannibals. He quickly untied Ricardo and the others. As they fled the cathedral, Ricardo's leg throbbed, a stump of red flesh. They drove away, but the leg was a serious problem. Back at the car, Matthias poured alcohol on the wound, and the searing pain made Ricardo pass out again. When he awoke, he knew his time was limited. He felt the first signs of tetanus, his head burning with fever. His leg was dark and throbbing. He wrote this story, a final message, planning to take Matthias's gun tonight. He had lost all hope. He knew he didn't have much time, and he wanted his death to be quick and clean. He was writing this record of what happened to them and to the world, so that if anyone ever found it, they would know the truth. But he doubted anyone would. There were so few people left. Which of these stories did you enjoy the most? Of course, the full story can be found on the Creepypasta website, if you would like to check them out. I will be uploading videos once or twice a week, so be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you all for your support. As always, see you all in the next one.